Why do centrists hate leftists? That is the question posed by the video that we're about to watch right now by the content creator Ace Among Spades. Now, from what I understand, this guy is not like a far-right weirdo. This guy is not a lunatic or anything like that. I watched a small sample of the video, and I didn't watch much, but what I did see was enough to clue me in that this guy, at the very least, recognizes the far-right Groyper Nazi sphere for what they are. And if someone's willing to recognize the far-right and call out the far-right and the far-left, that tells me they actually are a centrist. I think a lot of the left doesn't like centrists because they think centrists are fake, a made-up concept. More than anything, they think that centrists serve a purpose for the right without even realizing it, that they could never accidentally serve for the left, and they never would intentionally serve for the left. And so naturally, I think a lot of lefties see centrists as basically just a useful cog in the right-wing machine. But if someone is a genuine centrist, as in they don't necessarily identify with either side, but they absolutely call out the faults of the right when they happen, I can't really fault that. You know? Like, I don't agree, but at the same time, it's like, at least you're not pretending we live in a different reality. At the end of the day, the thing I'm most frustrated by in politics is when people are unwilling to accept reality, when we have to pretend that reality is different than what it actually is, you know? And so this guy seems pretty legit. And he seems to be explaining from his perspective why he and other centrists tend to hate leftists. And I am curious how much of these takes we're going to be able to agree on, and how many of them I might be able to offer a sort of counter to. I really hope he ends up watching this video. Feel free to send it his way if you want to, like, encourage him to check this out and, like, see my arguments and stuff. Obviously, we're not going in bad faith. We're not going in to be nasty here. In fact, I encourage you to go leave nice comments, leave likes, all that good stuff. Subscribe to this channel. From what I've seen, the content seems pretty legit, and he calls out the far right, so you might end up liking his stuff. Let's get right into it, though. Without any further ado, I'm gonna leave a like as well.
Because they're so annoying. They are
True.
like mosquitoes that buzz around a normal person. They're loud, they're idiots, and they're mean. And they're all around nasty people.
Okay, as over-the-top and hyperbolic as that was, can we admit that a lot of those things are low-key true about a lot of the left? If you've been online, or it's especially true of the online left. In real life, left-wing people are some of the most normal people you'll encounter. Even real-life conservatives are pretty normal. Online, though, which is where most people have their political experience, because you don't really do politics in real life with people all that much, you just kind of avoid it as a topic. I mean, you've encountered Hassan fans, you have to have encountered tankies and woke scolds. I don't think the left is any worse than the far right in these ways, but there is a difference. The left is almost as bad, if not just as bad, as the far right in a lot of these ways, but then you have to throw the smug air of moral superiority on top of it. Progressives are extremely morally superior, very, like, smug, high horse kind of vibe. And when they're annoying or wrong, and then they're that on top of it, it makes it so bad. Lefties also have a tendency to attack people really nastily without even realizing it, because from their POV, they only attack the worst of the worst. So of course, any measure to make them feel bad or to make them feel uncomfortable is warranted. But in reality, more often than not, I don't think a lot of lefties realize how often they've been extremely toxic without realizing it.
Who could be such asshole? Anyway, that's basically most of the rationale, mate. Alt-right schizoids are generally worse, as they're the ones typically in power, but is it weird to say they aren't as insufferable as leftists? Like, look, when you look at the average MAGA coper who still hasn't admitted, you know...
Like, obviously, if you're a woman, or you're black, or you're gay, or you're trans, you're probably gonna find a MAGA cultist a lot more insufferable, but if you're not, then... And if you're on the left, you're going to be surrounded by progressives more often on a daily basis, and... they can be pretty insufferable, right? Like, there's just a certain annoyingness, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean they're worse people. It's just, for some people, the way the left is can be more annoying than the way the right is. And when you're the kind of person whose politics are impacted by which side you're most annoyed by, that can be very strong. That can have a big, decider. That can be a big decider in what views you end up having. You know the people who tell you to boycott every food company or you're supporting genocide? Yeah, or the people that were like screaming at AOC to say that Israel was bad for the 500th time. It's like they were yelling at her like she'd never said it before. And like the people who go into like a McDonald's and scream about how like everyone in there is pro-genocide. Like, yeah, that kind of thing. Or the Just Stop Oil protesters that like are trying to be as annoying and shitty as possible because people hating them means people are paying attention to the environment and what's happening to it, but they don't seem to realize they're making people want to not do anything about climate change out of spite. Those people.
They've been played by the Tangerine Terror, you can safely say that that person is brainwashed, and any discussion with them is ultimately useless. Like, we can all collectively agree, mates, that they're insane, brainwashed, or they're too proud to admit they were wrong. But one thing that you can give them is when you do call them an idiot, they typically, mind you, typically is doing a lot of heavy lifting, they typically don't think you're an evil or morally bankrupt person. They just think you're misguided. Typically. I find it very fascinating that despite their demented beliefs, like with MAGA morons outside their shitty politics and beliefs, you can actually have a, rather normal relationship with them. And if they aren't completely gone and brainwashed through...
This is true and something a lot of progressives aren't willing to admit. Like, for the most part, conservative politics have been so normalized over the years that for the average person, being buddies with like an extremely far-right MAGA guy feels very much like being friends with anybody else, but being friends with someone who's super left-wing feels very different. It's also worth noting that, like, if you're on the left, how often can you count that, like, a conversation with absolutely nothing to do with, like, culture or politics or class warfare is being had, and then someone in the friend group just finds a way to inject a conversation about, like, class consciousness. And it's like every single conversation needs to end in, like, bringing it around to class consciousness or how evil our systems are and whatnot. I'm being a little hyperbolic with how common it is, but if you guys exist on the left, y'all know, right? Like, there are a lot of progressives who just cannot leave politics mode and go into, like, interpersonal, just chilling out, being normal mode. And I know this personally because I'm a progressive content creator, and when I turn the camera off, I would like to take a break from politics more often than not if I'm not actively editing or preparing or researching for another topic. When I'm in VC, hanging out with friends, I just want to watch shows and play video games and take a break from the thing that is my job. But then sometimes my fans will hop in VC to tell me, did you hear about insert news I'm hearing for the 500th time today? Or like, it'll just get brought up, politics will just be brought up, and it's like, man, I'm just trying to enjoy an apolitical, like, chill out session. And now, like, 5 people in here are talking politics. And it's really hard to have a normal conversation with no politics involved with a lefty friend group. But if you're in a friend group full of conservatives or Nazis even, they might go days at a time without having a big political rant or a big political combo.
Empathy and compassion, you can somewhat peel away the reasons why they're so hateful and why they believe, like, the things they believe. And typically, you can disarm the person and make them think differently. Or you can just be me and manipulate and, lie to them in order to make them not MAGA. Yeah, sometimes you just respect the person a little too much that, you have to give them a steady hand and force them to be normal.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. To be fair, I've only ever demagafied people who watch my content, and, like, my content itself, like, made them leave MAGA, leave the far right, and become progressive. But I will say that when it comes to people who are kind of susceptible, let's say, like, they believe in conspiracy theories because they recognize that some weird shit is going on. Okay, I'll use an example. I've got a friend who's definitely been getting a little bit too into the Israel is behind everything ever conspiracy stuff, like even 9/11, and it's like, okay, listen. I know you recognize that something is fishy here. But you realize that one of the biggest funders of Al-Qaeda, who is officially behind the 9/11 attacks, was Saudi Arabia, a country that we today make excuses for, are super close with, and have a ton of, like, investment with, and will never call out, right? The actual conspiracy here is the fact that a ton of these ultra-wealthy Gulf state countries funded a bunch of these terror groups that we've gone to war with or fought with or gone to war over or been attacked by, and yet we're friendly with these countries today because they're so wealthy that we want to have our hands in their pockets. We want to be friendly with them. That's the conspiracy, not that Israel was secretly behind 9/11. And it's like, you, at least in my experience, pointing out where the actual, like, fishy bullshit is happening and being able to back it up with sources and be like, no, here, I literally have, like, articles about it, you know? Like, I don't just say that shit, I back it up. And I want to make the person I'm convincing actually educated on the topic. More often than not, it works. Like, that's generally interpersonally how I do things. Is like, I recognize that there is something there. There is something that they are picking up on, and I'm like, okay, this is what you're actually picking up on.
Is what I do really Machiavellian if, you know, the other person benefits? As they say in the Badlands, who knows, who cares? Regardless, with hardline leftists, there is no room for debate. Typically, if you disagree, you're a Nazi. If you're a Democrat,
these are your Hassan types.
You're a Nazi. If you
Yep. Yeah. He knows exactly. I don't know if he's going to directly call out Hassan in the tanky sphere, but that's definitely who he's talking about. The if you support the Democrats, you're a Nazi bit. That's the tell right there. He's talking about that side of the left, the side that I have very much spent a very long time going after these days, like over the last few years, really, in particular.
You're a centrist, you're a Nazi. If you're a Christian, or really any religion, you're a Nazi. For some leftists, if you're a Jew, you're a Nazi. And also, obviously, if you're a conservative, you're definitely a Nazi to them. And finally, the cherry on top, if you will, if you're a leftist, you're a Nazi. My, with such rational conclusions and conduct, how is it that the leftists have never gained power in America, Ace? It must be those meta...
And for those who don't know what that last one means, it's how many leftist creators who are like 99.99999% more progressive than the rest of the population get called Nazis on a regular basis. For those who don't know, one of the most famous Nazis online, if you listen to the far left, is ContraPoints.
CIA agents, you know, even though they only deal with foreign affairs and shit, somehow it's the CIA and not FBI. I guess because I'm too much of an idiot to understand the difference. Anyway, back to the matter at hand, gentlemen.
Or me.
Basically, the real reason why real centrists, mind you, real certified centrists typically hate more on leftists, and mind you, leftists, not Democrats, is that leftists are, you know, basically the nerd emoji of all politics. Preachy, annoying, know-it-all, and above all else, contradictory. Even though I despise the far right way more than I would a communist, I find myself flaming leftists online and, you know, rage baiting them. Honestly, for the longest...
Far right people don't take the bait as well either. Like, it's more fun to troll lefties than it is to troll conservatives. Conservatives know trolling when they see it, and lefties always take the bait.
Time I didn't know why. I'm horrified of what MAGA can do to this country, yet, you know, the Twitter brain-dead communist is the thing that gets me to roll my eyes enough where I have to play around with them.
I feel like this is because deep down, maybe, he wants to be a leftist. He wants to be able to say he's a leftist, but he sees what the majority, or what he thinks the majority of leftists are like, and is like, I can't be one of these people. I cannot be one of these fucking people. And I definitely tussle with that thought process from time to time myself. But I try not to let... It's like watching a show. A show can be the best show or movie ever made, but if its fan base ends up being cringe as fuck, the internet is going to hate it, and you're going to be like, I can't let gang know I fuck with this, you know what I mean? And so, it's a bit like that. Like being a leftist is a bit like, fuck, I can't let gang know I fuck with this. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of negative connotations because the loudest and most annoying people are, of course, the ones that you think of first, you know? Like, if you're a Five Nights at Freddy's or Undertale fan, you probably don't talk about it much, for instance.
Just a little. You know, maybe it's because, you know, extremists just typically give more fun reactions than moderates. Really, I think there's a variety of reasons why centrists hate leftists more, but like I said, I think the main reason for many is how just annoying they are and their stuck-up attitude leftists typically have, and how they think they're basically Jesus Christ and how much of a good person they are.
The moral superiority is something that right-wingers sometimes have, but the far right doesn't go the moral superiority route. They tend to be like edgy and smarmy and sarcastic, which is just less obnoxious than morally superior. Nothing is more obnoxious than moral superiority, faked moral superiority.
If you watched my AI video, you know I sorta loathe grandstanding, and I feel so much of leftism online especially is about grandstanding. Look at me, look
And
at
virtue
me, look
signaling.
at how I'm morally superior because I use a tote bag. Or because I hate AI, I'm such a good person.
Or I don't eat McDonald's, or I don't play a video game from a company that did mass layoffs, or whatever it may be. Like, there is a lot of policing. That's really the best way to put it. It's a lot of community policing.
Or because I think the capitalist is the badman, and the people on the top are the badmen. Yeah, and I also don't like serial killers. That doesn't make me a good person. Look, let's get more into the brass tacks of how much leftists are kind of annoying babies. The kind of...
Actually, that's a good point. The left and right are not filters for good and bad people. There are good people on the right, and there are bad people on the left. The difference is left-wing people tend to do that whole, like, moral superiority, look down on you if you disagree thing. So when someone happens to be a bad person on the left and they do that, it is the most infuriating thing in the world. Because at least a bad person on the right comes off as embracing it and owning what they are. But a bad person on the left is a cry bully. And everyone hates a cry bully.
Baby that, you know, cries for hours on end on an airplane. The kind of baby that makes everyone on the plane the closest they'll ever get to becoming a murderer. The kind of baby you just want to smack against the wall, string it up in the air and smack it.
God damn it, YouTube's gonna strike me for this.
With a stick like a piano. Yo! Look, I'll be honest with you, lefties. If you weren't so insufferable, you'd probably actually get people to listen to you. But instead, you are disgusting, annoying, insignificant, and pathetic. Your ideologies are anti-American.
He's being hyperbolic to an extent, but to be honest, his sentiment is true. Like, optics matter, and the left has decided they don't for a very long time, and that's how we got here. At the end of the day, the left could have had the influence to have convinced America that Joe Biden's economy was, in fact, the strongest growing economy America's had in decades, which it factually was, but the people who had the most voices, or the most ears listening to them, were the ones lying and saying the economy was destroyed. The economy was worse than ever. And now, we're experiencing a real bad economy, and while people don't like the right at the moment, it is on the left to adjust our rhetoric and adjust our perception to break away from the mold of the straw man that we have been forced into, and to be better, and to grow in the right stead. And unfortunately, creators like Hassan do not help the left in this goal. I get shit every time I criticize Hassan, but I think a lot of Hassan fans, for one, are just not really aware of, like, a fraction of the shit he's done. But on top of that, a lot of them are not aware of how unliked he is outside of the left. Because anyone who is not into politics and left-wing, specifically, that knows about Hassan, and many of them do not like him. I think a lot of Hassan fans fail to realize how far the Hassan shocking his dog meme, which was real, by the way, he did shock his dog and lied about it, how far that spread. Like, that was so ubiquitous beyond politics that Hassan's name recognition is fucked now. Like, everybody associates Hassan with dog abuse now. Like, his reach is hindered. And for as long as he's, like, king of the left is hindered.
American inherently. We're ruthless capitalists, for God's sake. You want moral capitalism or socialism? Go to the EU or rot in Venezuela or some shit. Here in America, the strong survives and the weak dies. The average socialist, or leftist, is just a Neanderthal that is so pathetic that it can't even defend itself against the capitalist. You silly little...
He's obviously joking, but at the end of the day, a lot of Americans do mythologize America to be this country that is especially unique for having the ability to take someone from nothing to being the most successful person in the country. And it is a myth. Don't get me wrong, people can entrepreneur their way from the bottom to the top, but the statistics suggest it is extremely rare. Do you want to know where it's more common than in America? China. Right now, more people are going from not rich to rich in China than in America. More than any other country. China sucks for a lot of fucking reasons, but nonetheless, if we judge a country by the ability to take somebody from nothing to wealth, then you would say China would be the best place to live. But obviously that idea isn't really accurate even there, right? Like, nobody can guarantee hard work takes them to the top. No one can guarantee that hard work takes them anywhere. That's the problem. We don't actually live in a meritocracy. People are so subject to the circumstances of their birth, down to like who gave birth to them, how many parents did they have in the home, do they have a father around, are they getting raised by a single mom, have they ever encountered a computer by the time they're 20 something, so will that allow them to have enough experience to get into the world of tech, which basically dominates the job market right now? Did they have enough time and money and the location? Like, if you're born in certain places, you have no way of getting to school without very special programs being set up for you. If you have to ride like an hour into town to go to school every day on like a special bus sent out to pick you up, there's a good chance you might not get the best education. There's just a lot of factors for a lot of Americans that mean they aren't necessarily getting a fair shake of things. You know what I mean? Anyway, this video overall I do think provides some decent insight into why people really don't like progressives. And I think it's important for you as a progressive, at least if you have a platform like me, then I need to avoid being that awful stereotype of a lefty. At least I try to do that as much as I can. Obviously I'm not perfect, but I do my best. So, if you ended up liking the video I was watching and you want to see the rest of it, there'll be a link to it down below in the description. I highly recommend you go check it out. And of course, if you want to support me, leave a like, a comment, and a hype down below. It means a lot. And subscribe if you want to see more. I appreciate it. And as always, thank you for watching this video.